Okay, so you've decided to buy yourself a ham radio, handheld. And what are the top 5 things you will probably buy? You may not, but you probably will. One of the most popular things you'll probably end up buying is antennas. It does come with antennas. I mean, you get little antennas like this, and then you get big antennas like this. Okay. Antennas do run on frequencies. They are designed to run on certain frequencies. When you get an antenna that does every frequency, okay, it's an okay antenna. It just doesn't get out as it should. This antenna here is nice. It's flexible, has a whippy to it. And you have to make sure you're buying an authentic antenna and not some knockoff. This is an authentic, genuine Nagawa NAF30G. No, that's what this is. Sorry. This is a Nagawa NA771 15.6 inch whip. It's a 15-inch antenna. It does VHF and UHF, which basically is ham radio stations. So when I put this on the radio, I can hear people talking on ham. And the reason I only wanted like 15 inches is because right now it's going in the truck. I don't want it sticking up a mile. Now, this particular radio has the authentic, genuine NAFOG 30-inch, as you can see how long that is. Okay. And it runs on GMRS, and it runs on 155 to 465. A little bit more expensive. These antennas break. Okay, so now you can put that in your backpack or carry it here, and it's kind of out of the way. When you want to use it, you could extend it when you're sitting in your tent, and now you got some height to it. And you're going to go quite a ways with talking. Obviously, they say the higher the antenna, the further you go. Not always necessarily true. This is a 30-inch, which is good enough. They do make them as high as 42-inch. I've seen people do tests on them, and there was no real difference, is what goes on with them. So I have a couple different antennas, the antennas it came with. Now, when you have these different antennas, you could go, unscrew this, screw it back in, unscrew this, screw it back in. And then you risk the chance of wrecking the threads on your radio. I've attached this unit, as you see on the bottom, to the antenna. There is another unit that attaches to the actual radio, as you'll see here. Okay. Now what happens is these mate together. Okay, is what happens. So when you grab this and turn, that's it. You push it on, turn, done. Push it off. It goes on and off very quickly. There's no screwing. Now you get 2 connectors for the radio, 2 connectors for an antenna. So you're in about $10. So now you can put it on 2 antennas and use it for 2 radios or just one. It's up to you. So these little pieces to make your life a little easier, end up being a little bit of money, but not a lot of money. So antennas. Then you've got the idea of a screen protector, which I have on here. Okay. Is what I have. These screens are not very protected. They scratch up easy. You do need a screen protector with them. They send you 3. I'll have links in the bottom. I did both radios. I did screw up the first one. But that's just, I always screw up one. And that might be why they send you 3. So I would get the screen protectors if you're going to buy whatever radio, if you buy the ones I bought. Now, I have the 2 antennas because one is for listening to ham. The other one is for talking if I want on GMSR. There's a difference. GMRS is where you don't have to take a test. You pay $35 for 10 years. It's a $35 one-time fee for 10 years. And then everybody in your family can talk on that radio or multiple radios. So, and your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your kids, your grandkids, all the way down. So having that GMRS license, I think is a must, is what it is. So that way, you're at least legal. And this gives you time to familiarize yourself with the radios and then move into possibly taking the ham radio license if you want. And then you can talk on the other UHF, VHF channels. So you may wish to do that later. Now, there was a guy in Tennessee that had one of these cheaper ones. These were about $15, $20. And if anything, go buy a couple of these. And this one's over 10 years old. Still works. Basically, you're allowed to talk on your radio, even if you don't have a license on ham, if it's an emergency. And in his emergency, there was no cell phone. There was no way to communicate with anybody. He would have had to get out in the backyard and make smoke signals. But his radio did work. He could hear somebody on a repeater. So the radio was working. He keyed up the mic and he talked to the guy that was running it, and he said, "We need help here, please. We need help." And the guy asked him his location, where he was, and he said, "What do you need help with?" And he says, "We need water. We need water really bad." And the guy on the repeater side decided to contact officials, and they got them water. A perfect example of how to use it when you need to use it in an emergency. This wasn't SHTF, although it will come in handy for that. It was simply an emergency to get help, is what that was. Now, there are many things about these radios that you will not understand. When I started playing with this radio, they have software for free. You can download on your computer and you can program this. You can have whatever you want. Every button, you can choose how you want it to go. Like, for example, okay, let me turn the power off on this one, and you'll see. One. Kind of cool. I got my emblem in there. You can do that. The channel it's on right now is a channel for talking. So press the talk, and you can talk between the two radios. The other thing I've configured is this one button configuration. Basically, that's the local country station in my area. So they also have news and everything else on that. Now, if I go down,
46, Huntington, 43, Paris, 43.
That's one push button. So it automatically connects to my area for my weather. So one push for the radio, one push for the weather, and then one push to talk. This is what I've got set up right now. Now I'm going to set up some scanning frequencies to where, let's say I go to Nashville, I'm going to set up school bus, maybe taxi, maybe some other frequencies, and have it scan when I'm sitting in the truck waiting for the wife or whatever, or maybe when I'm driving down the road. And this way I can hear what's going on. A lot of truck drivers carry this now, then they do CBs, is what they do. So why did I pick this radio? Well, I did a lot of research on radios. I do a lot of research on everything I buy. And it was analog, it was digital, it does GMRS, it does a lot of things. There's also, if you search YouTube, and this is illegal, there is a file that you can download and put into these radios that loads all the CB channels into them. Some guy from Russia had made a file that you can upload and do it to your radio. Very much like how I put the image inside the radio. The other nice thing about it, one of the biggest things with these radios was when you went outside, you couldn't see the screen if the sun was really bright. Now, you can change every color on this screen. Every color. So you could spend a day doing all that. Well, this Russian guy took the time and made a file that you upgrade to the radio, and changed all the colors. So when you go outside, it's not perfect, but you can now see the screen, which I thought was awesome. And I did update my radios. So another thing these radios do, they allow encryption, talking between the radios. So if you have two, they don't hear nothing. I mean, that's what encryption means. So now you ask yourself, well, why have encryption if it's not allowed and it's against the rules, against the law? Well, some companies have that, so they include it in the radio in case some company bought it. You take, for example, Walmart. You'll see those people walking around with, they're not walkie-talkies. They have their own designated channels, and they can encrypt them to where now only they can hear each other and nobody else can. So it has its purpose for what it is. Believe it or not, a cell phone is a radio. And then they put a bunch of towers up and made it user-friendly like Windows, and the next thing you know it, they called it a cell phone. But this will be the only thing working. When SHTF happens, when a storm happens, I know that because I've lived through it. These are the only things that work. These are the only things that are going to give you your information that you need to know. Okay, now if you have your licenses, you can call people in your local area on this, and you can say, hey, do you know if these roads are clear? Because your cell phone won't be working. Hopefully your radio will be, the radio station, ours was, but sometimes it's not. Okay, and believe it or not, every police officer in my area has their ham radio license. I looked it up. Isn't that kind of interesting, isn't it? So you should have a ham radio license. You should have your GMR RS license, which is $35 for 10 years for your whole family. Now, the other thing I bought was, this was extremely affordable. And the radio comes with this, which is okay, but, goes on there, and it clips, and then there it sits. You can see your screen, you can get access to your, and then you got a clip back here. And that clip's kind of weak, I wouldn't trust that. You see how that kind of flops around? I don't know. I just really don't trust that very much. To where I pull this off, okay, and then this will go in there like that. And then this pulls over top, going over top of the knob, and down it goes. Now this ain't going nowhere. Okay, now if you get one of those push-to-talk things on the side that connect to your radio, well, you don't even have to access your radio if you got it on a certain channel. So I just find this to be a whole lot better, and this is made by One Tiger is what this is made by. So you are going to have to buy some doodads for your radio. Now I have another doodad coming in that's being 3D printed. I bought off Etsy, and I'll show you that when it comes in. But it sits in the cup holder of my truck, and then the radio itself sits inside of it, and it sits there, so that way it's not falling on the floor and jargled all over the place and everything. So that's kind of nice. But I'll show you those when they come in. Now, it's hard to find things for this radio. To be quite honest with you. It's not like there's 80 people out there making things. I had to sit on GPT trying to find a case that was Molly, and going back and forth with ChatGPT and checking measurements and everything else, and that was the closest I could get for a tight fit. There is another one out there made by a company, but they're charging like $50 for it, which is pretty expensive. And I emailed them. I mean, they make a case for a radio that's below this one, not this one particular. And I asked them if this would fit in that case, and it's been over a week, and they never got back to me. When I email a company, if they don't get back to me, I don't buy it. I don't care how much I like it. That just tells me what kind of company I'm dealing with. Okay, customer service is out the window. And I just won't deal with them. That's all there is to it. So, you're probably going to buy antennas. Pay attention to your frequencies. You're probably going to buy the quick connects. You're probably going to buy the protection for the glass. You're probably going to buy a Molly case or maybe some other case to keep it. These particular, any radio you could use in your vehicle. You could put an antenna on your vehicle, which I'm looking at. It's about $100. And then the connections, I'm looking at about $250 by the time I'm all said and done. Get it hooked up in my truck. And then I'll have a quick connect cable that just disconnects this, and then it connects, and this will sit in the cup holder, and then I'll really get some distance. So that'll be kind of nice. You don't need all that, but that's just some options you might want to consider. Now, when I was programming these radios, I had some learning curves to go through. When I first updated the radio, it changed everything on the radio in Chinese. I was like, wow, how am I going to change it back to English? There is a way of resetting the radios, but I had to press like 3 buttons and then turn it on. I didn't have enough fingers. My son had to turn it on while I was pressing the buttons. And then the radio reset. And then I started over, is what I did. So little things can happen when you're programming and coding your radio. I would say probably the first 4 hours, you're going to pull your hair out. There is a bit of a learning curve. But every mistake you make is good because you're not going to forget what you did. And I made every mistake there was, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Now, the nice thing about this particular radio is you can change everything in the menu system on the radio. You don't need the software. And you can use the software. So the software is a bit more convenient, but you have the option of doing both. And the software is free. It doesn't cost anything. Now, understand something. These are digital and analog radios, and they run off frequency. They can be changed. There are people that make their own frequencies, and there are people that do black market stuff, and there's an entire thing going on with these radios. And it is quite interesting. The more you research and the more you look into it, and I can imagine some guy that's been using these things for 20 years, what he knows. So that is something to think about. Now, whether they talk to you about it or not, I don't know. But like I said, you can load CB channels onto it. They say it's illegal. You can encrypt between 2 radios. They say it's illegal. You're a big boy. If you're not going to talk on them like it's a bloody phone every friggin' day, that's up to you. But if you want to be equipped with the CB channels, you want to be equipped with one channel that's completely private, and you're on there and you're talking to your wife for 10 minutes and you say switch, she'll understand what you mean. So then you'll switch over. But pay attention to frequency on the antennas you put on. And the words like VHF, UHF, that's ham. And, and then you hear GMRS and MURS. Well, that's a different frequency. So once you understand all that, then you're pretty good to go. But if anything, if you can't afford to buy these were like $60 each, so you buy 2, you're into 120. There is a model lower than this that's analog, not digital, and they're like $30. So you get 2 for 60. I just wanted best bang for my buck, that's all. Or you could go and pick up something like this, which is a whole lot smaller, and get them for like $15-20, and $40 you got a set of radios ready to go and something to practice with. You should have something in the way when it comes to radios and not depend on a cell phone, because when we had that ice storm, everything went down. I mean, I changed everything on my truck, from getting people out to getting trees off the road to this was the only radio I had to upgrading my radios, and even looking into the antenna that goes on the truck itself. So you don't have to buy what I have, but you should have something, and you should bring it into. That's why I wanted something with Molly, for example. You should bring it into your get home bag, or get out of Dodge bag, whatever. You should consider some form of communications on here. These weigh about a pound. These are a lot lighter. So I'll have links in the bottom. I'll have a little description of stuff to explain what they are to make it easy for you and for you to make a choice. But you can't go wrong. I mean, even if you buy the cheaper ones, you can't go wrong. You're going to learn. Okay, and that's one of the biggest things. You're going to have to learn. And it's not like buy some rice and put it in the corner and hope it never goes bad. By the way, rice does go bad. But hey, look it up. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.